everybody. How are you guys doing? How's everything going? How is your Saturday, your weekend starting? All those great things. I'm Tiffany, TLRS Lifestyle. This is...
Nia, the Vixen of Fiction, all over the internet.
And we are going to be talking all things small town. Okay, I just got to know, Nia, am I the only one who, when I came up with this idea of small town world, has been singing, what is it?
The song is in my head.
Yeah, every
you
time
don't
I
even
say
have
it.
to finish that statement. The song, nonstop in my head. Every time I talk about it with anybody, they are like, duh, duh, duh. It happens. Yes.
I know. I'm just like, if I could figure out a way to use that as our intro song, I totally would. I mean, I completely copyright written and be hidden, but I'm like, if I could figure out a way to...
It's like, can we buy like 5 seconds of the song just
right? I'm like, we're gonna change the words. It's not gonna be small town girl. It's gonna be small town world. But welcome. I'm going to give Nia a full chance to introduce herself because we are going to tell you guys a little bit about ourselves, why we love the idea of doing something with small towns. But I want to give you just a kind of an idea of how this is going to go. I was thinking maybe an hour to an hour and a half. We'll figure out as we go how much... it's us, so we know we can talk small towns for forever. But somewhere around there, I'm not gonna really be putting up a lot of the comments because this is more kind of like a podcast in a way. If I see something that's really cool or really speaks to what it is that we're talking about, I'm gonna go ahead and put that up. And then we will take, like, say, the last 15-20 minutes and answer any questions you guys come up with. So if you have questions, please put like a capital Q in the comment right before your question, or like capital word question before your question, and then we will save those all for the end and really dive into what it is that you guys are asking or wanting to know, or all the things that we could help you with. So Nia, tell all the lovely people about yourself, where they can find you, why you love small towns, why you like building small towns, all the fun stuff about the small towns.
Yeah. So many great things about small towns. So I'm Nia, the Vixen of Fiction, all over the interwebs. I do live streams, so you can connect with me here on YouTube on Tuesday nights at 7:30, or you can connect with me over on Twitch in the middle of the day on Mondays, sometimes Wednesdays and Fridays. I have been writing for a long time and just building worlds in general. I will say my favorite game since it came out was Sims 1 all the way up to now Sims 4 for the world building. That is why I loved the game. I build the world and then I just drop a lot of people in it and just play around with their lives, and that was a lot of fun. So other than that, I have been writing for a long time, and I'm a huge world builder. I always have a hard time just writing one story. Anytime I write a story, it expands into a great big humongous thing. And so what I love about small towns is that I can create this world, and whereas one of my recent small towns started out as just a novel, but I created all of these people and all this whole town and this whole region, and I fell in love with them and wanted to make short stories involving all of them. And so, yeah, when you make a small town, you're literally just creating a world. And there's so many people in it and so many interesting things for them to get up to.
I think that's part of my favorite part of building small towns. And when you said Sims, 100%. I think that was probably my intro. I still have like the Sims free play on my computer, or like on my tablet, and I have like all the families and the different things and all the interconnections, and I'm like, I love it. And if you don't know, I am Tiffany, TL West Lifestyle. Like I said, you are on my station, or channel, I guess it's more or less. But I too stream on Thursdays, which I think most people know, for PJs and Scribbles, and once a month on Saturdays for Saturday Shorts. And I think my love of small towns actually started with Sims, I do agree, but also with reading them, because I loved not just the main characters that you were getting, but like all the backstage people, that just kind of
Yeah.
kept the town going, kept things happening. Like, you never knew Sally's story, but you knew Sally was in all the stories,
That part. Yes.
and you like got really excited every time somebody's going to the bakery or wherever Sally was at, because you're like, oh, it's gonna be Sally. And so I just really love that aspect of it, where like you get to see not just the main people, but you get to see like these reoccurring characters that just bring this vitality and life to what it is that you're reading. And I find that so intriguing and exciting.
Yeah. I know as a small child, one of the first times that I really experienced this, there are several shows. If you go back to, I'm going to date myself, I was a small child in the 80s. But we had some shows where that would happen a lot. And I know that one of them that I would watch all the time because my parents thought it was very wholesome. But I got to watch A Little House on the Prairie. And
Oh,
when they would go into town, and I'm like, where are they going to go see Doc, or are they going to go into the general store? And, is Nellie going to be there, and giving them a hard time? And then when they go off to the school, and they'd always pick out somebody, like if it was someone in Laura's class, we'd get a little touch of their lives because some interaction would happen where then we get to go to their house and see what they're doing and
mm-hmm.
resolve their conflict or issue that they have in their home. And some of these people we would visit all the time, and some people we only got to see them once and then they were gone. But I remember that like so vividly as a child, just loving that, like, where are we going to go today?
You know what's really funny? You brought up Little House on the Prairie. I thought you were going to say, and this is for real dating myself, even though this isn't a show that I watched. Well, I watched, but it was like in reruns, so I'm not dating it too bad. But also because my mother thought it was wholesome, Leave It to Beaver. And I was
Yes.
like, are you kidding?
Yes.
But
We watched those when we went to grandma's, the Leave It to
yeah,
Beavers and a
so
couple other
well,
ones. Same thing, yes.
if we're getting to watching what we watched at grandma's, I watched soap operas, but that was because she didn't believe the TV had any other stations past Channel 4. But my cousin, um, when she went to college, her freshman year, I just remember she scheduled her classes around, I feel like Little House on the Prairie came on at like 9 o'clock in the morning. And so it was like a 2-hour thing, like they came on back to back. And so she was like, I can't take classes until Little House on the Prairie it goes on. She's like, I have
Yeah,
this flexibility now. That's how we have to do it.
yeah. And I will say they were probably reruns when we were kids. However, we had to watch on regular TV, so it came on when it came on, and that
Yeah.
was it. So
Yeah.
we
I love
couldn't
it.
just stream it whenever we wanted to.
I love Lucy too, Barrett. That is, I love Lucille Ball. I actually have Lucille Ball like autobiographies. I have Lucille Ball like a I Love Lucy mug. I have a Lucille Ball cup. I have uh all the I Love Lucy's on DVD. Like, I was a huge Lucille Ball fan. I have the movies, her and Desi's movies. I have some of her own ones. Huge fan. So yes, I do love a good I Love Lucy. But like, and in some ways I guess maybe I Love Lucy could have been considered a little bit of a small town, because it was set in New York, but like you really only saw the apartment building, maybe a couple of like stores, and then
Mhm.
like the Copacabana, and that was it. Like, there was never really like, we're going out, like they talked about going out on a night of town, but you rarely saw it.
Right.
So yeah, so maybe there was a little smally town in there. Um, so well, we are going to talk about, like, our idea is that each time we come on, we will have like a different theme. And today's theme is naming your small town. And I thought about
She started with a
brainstorming your
hard one
small town
for
first.
me.
Huh?
I said she started with a hard one for me, but fun. But I end up down rabbit holes. We'll
Well,
talk
I
about
did think about brainstorming your town as the first one, because I do think sometimes you do have to brainstorm your town first. But also, I was like, if we start with brainstorming our town, like we will be here for
it.
three,
That's a
4
4-hour show. You need to
hours.
reserve the whole afternoon.
I'm like, we're here all afternoon. Yeah, it's all
Grab your
afternoon.
food, grab your snacks, get a blanket, get
Yeah.
comfortable.
So I was like, maybe let's start with naming because I feel like that one we can do a little bit more concise. Uh, so, Nia, when you sit down and you've done your brainstorming, you got your stuff out, you're figuring out where you're going to put these people, what's the first thing that you kind of come up with as far as like thinking up a name?
A lot of times, and I have a story that's set in another place with codename Penny, and then I have the one that I'm writing under NV James. And a lot of times, for me, it's the history of the town, quite
Mm.
literally. I start with what's the history? Who are the people? Is this town going to be named after people, or is this town going to be named after an event or something in someone's life? So I have to think about who founded this town. And so I'm mostly from North Carolina. I'm also from Maryland, but I've lived North Carolina most of my life when I wasn't doing the military thing. And a lot of towns are literally named after people. They're either named after, some king or duke or whatever, or Queen Charlotte, from back in England, or they're named after someone who was in the town first. It started with their piece of property, and now we have a town. Sometimes it's named after something that's in the town, and then they throw Ville at the end of it. So I start thinking about those things. If I can't think of, something about the history of who first came to this town, who would have named it? Is there something that they liked? Maybe they liked Yellowstones, and so they named their town Yellowstone. No, but you see what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, so I think about things like that, and will that name work? And then I do this thing. I do look up town names, because if I can help it, I don't want to use something that's a big town name, where people will think, oh, you basing this story on this. I'm like, nope, nope. So yeah, I'm not going to name my town like Jamestown or something like that, because there's probably a ton of them. And then there's one in particular that people think about. So I'm like, yeah, no, I don't want people confusing. So I do try to come up with something unique that way. And if I can't come up with something through the history, it will literally be like, does this town have a certain kind of flower? Does this town have a certain type of river? Is it rainy or foggy all the time? And did it get its name that way? So those are just some of the things that I think about when I'm starting. And then we go through a whole lot more. But getting started, those are some good places for me to start thinking of a name.
I think I like that you said you start kind of with the history. I don't always start there, but that's a good way to start because I normally start with the region, like where I'm setting the town. I like look at what's popular in that area or what they're like maybe if it's a specific state that like well, I'm from Missouri, we're considered the show me state. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably not going to come up with Showville or something like
Right.
that. But if it's someplace, where like they're known for a flower or a fruit or a
Yes,
bird
exactly.
or something like that, or
Mm-hmm.
like I have a town that has springs at the end of the name. It's set in like a place that has a lot of hot springs,
Yep.
type of thing. So I generally look at things like that, or like if it has a state color or
Yep.
something, and I try to kind of play around with those things. But I like the idea of history because I've never really thought to look at like what's the history of the town
Yeah.
and kind of pull something from that because that's
Yeah. And actually, the one that you said, that's my second go-to when I talk about what's the region like, because early on, unless there's other things established around, you don't always know what's going to be the cool thing about your town, and it's usually
Mm-hmm.
doesn't start that way. But if you have daisies all over the place, maybe it's Daisyville or Daisy Hills. If there's hummingbirds, a special kind of hummingbird in that town, and you're thinking of things that you might want to incorporate, you're like, oh, I didn't even think about that, but that's a cool thing I can add. Maybe there's a little area where there's just hummingbirds all over the place and seasonal hummingbirds. And you were like, it's Hummingbird Hills because when you go up to the hill at a certain time of year, all the hummingbirds are there. And so it gets its name that way. But yeah, that's if I can't think of anything in the history itself, then I think of something about the region. But the way that, especially in the United States, the way that a lot of places are named, someone stops there, they say, this is mine. My last name is Billings, so this is Billingstown.
That's so funny. You were thinking, I was like, my name is Hudson. It's Hudsonville.
Yep, exactly. Yep. That so usually that's the way it happens. And then the other one is what do things look like?
Whatever
And
it
that's what
is,
they name it
it's
after.
very true. Now, here's something that I think a lot of people struggle with is what if, well, there's two things I think people struggle with, but let's start with this one. What if the name that you're thinking about is maybe taken or has been used before? And I will out myself. I woke up the other day and I was like, I want, like, I know right now I'm working on a new town and it's in Texas. And I just wanted to name it this name. This was the only name I had in my head. I was like, it's gotta be this name. I'm trying my best to figure out. I was like, it's so familiar, but it sounds so great. Like, I definitely want to use this name. I like was going on and on and on about this name. And I'm looking it up. I'm like, can't find it anywhere. And then I look under which if you guys didn't know, there is a website that you can go to that lists all of like this like TV show towns that have been used in TV shows. And that's why it sounded familiar because there's a whole TV show called Evermore. And that was
Yes,
the
I
name
love
that
that
went
name.
into it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
So what do you do?
I would have had. I was
Like,
like, I bet that's what because it's such
yeah,
a pretty name. The other name that I like, especially when a lot Tiffany and I do a lot of fantasy paranormal, so sometimes these names are just perfect for it. But like the one from Vampire Diaries, I think it's Mystic Falls, and it's
oh
like,
yes,
oh,
yes.
love that name.
So what do you do if you come up with it? Because then I was like, and I will say for me, what I did was because obviously I can't use Evermore. I started looking at kind of synonyms for it
Same.
or different types of things that I could add to it. Like, could I use Everstun? Or could I use Everville or something like that? So how do you like combat that if you come up with a name you just want to use, but it already has been used before?
Yeah, I do something similar. Like I do like to put like falls and hills and things like that. They sound very nice. And I knew like with the town that I'm writing, that's ethereal. And I was like, well, I don't want it to just be ethereal. So I was like, do I put ethereal hills, etherealville, ethereal falls? And then when I said it, it just sounded right.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the one that I went with. But yeah, I look for something that invokes that same kind of feeling, that same thought, that same kind of it's a small town, but it's a little mystery. There's hidden things. I want a name that kind of invoked that.
I get that. I like I said, I generally will kind of go around it, try to come up with something because I was like, well, what else says ever? Which you'd be surprised how many things, unless it's like forever, not so much. That work for a town name. There were a few other things, but I was just like, really? I like to also, like you said, look at not just what I can add to the end of it, but sometimes you can add something to the beginning.
Sure.
Because like there's a St. James, or like, sometimes there's like something else that you can put to it, like Forever. Obviously, I'm not gonna name a
Mhm.
town Forever because that sounds a little weird, but new
Yep.
works sometimes, old work sometimes.
Yeah.
So you can always add something at the beginning as well, and try to come up with kind of a way around, if you
Yeah.
will.
Yeah, I did this with some of because I think Tiffany, you do the same thing. When I build my world, I also build the extra worlds. It's a thing that we can get into in another podcast, because you don't have to. If you want to use New York or Miami, you absolutely can. But some of us are just creating our whole world. So one of them north, south, east, and west is a good one to put in front, and I
Oh,
did
yeah.
west with one of them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The, locations are good. Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So then that leads into the other question, which is, because you touched on it when you're like, if you want to use New York, what do you do when, like, you almost want to use that city?
If it has to be that city, I will use that city. Like if it has to be, I will. But if I can, and I just like to do it, so I'm not saying if you're out there and you're like, my person's going to be in, that if your person's going to be there for a little while, by all means, go ahead and use New York. But I do like to challenge myself. Can I make a city that's big enough to have what I need in it? 9 times out of 10, the answer is yes. Whether I have the time to do it, that's a whole different thing. But I enjoy the challenge of doing it, and then I can use that city for lots of different things.
Hmm. Because I think, because that was kind of my conversation, is like, sometimes, like, okay, Peach Ridge came out of like this idea that I wanted a town in the mountains, and I wore my Estes Park shirt from Colorado. Although this says Colorado first, and then it says Estes Park at the bottom. I thought it said Estes Park first, and then Colorado. Oh well. But I kind of wanted a town that was like that, but I didn't want to set it in Estes Park. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like, that's sometimes where I start to, like, I have another idea for a town, but it is very much set in a specific, like, place that is a real place. But then I went there and I walked the area, and like some of the stuff that I want to have that I'm in control of, they already have. And I'm like, well, I'd have to shut you down.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'd have to like figure out a way around you or something. And so sometimes it's a little bit harder to kind of set it in a specific location,
Yeah.
that you don't have that control over.
Yeah,
But
because if you leave things off, if people are reading your book and they're from that place, they're gonna be like, well, we have that there. Why are you acting like it's a big deal that you can't do this thing? And it's like, well, because I needed it to work this way for my story. So when you're making up your own town or your own city to go with your small town, you don't have those problems,
yeah,
because it's only the town and the city only have what you say it has. And then it has the
absolutely.
things that naturally in one's mind are there. So I don't have to say there's a water tower if the water tower, because we were like, okay, the town and the city have sanitation. We don't have to say that there's a sanitation thing. You know what I'm saying? You
Mhm.
don't have to say certain things. It's implied. But you're also not running into that situation where you're like, there can't be a Starbucks, but there's Starbucks all over that city. So I got to change this thing. You know, she's a barista who can't find work, but there's Starbucks everywhere. Why can't you find work? This doesn't make sense.
Now I do have you ever thought about, because I thought about this. Okay, so Raleigh is North Carolina, right?
Huh?
Or is it South Carolina? Raleigh?
Yes, Raleigh's North
Okay.
Carolina. I
Have you
mean,
ever thought about, because I have thought about this, and I think Barrett, if he's still in the chat, can kind of attest to this. St. Louis has a lot of these little, random spots that have these like special names, if you will, like the Hill
Mhm.
or the Grove. We like the in front of a lot of stuff, type of thing. Have you ever thought of just setting it in a big city, but creating your own little small area in that city?
Like a little borough of your own that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
I would think if the city's big enough, yeah, you could totally do that. I have not done that.
Because that's what I was thinking,
That would be
Raleigh, because
really
I know
cool.
that's where you kind of are, and I don't know if they have that the same as we do.
Oh yeah, Raleigh's got even yeah, even in the smaller city like Wilmington is very beautiful and it's got tons of just very different places that if you stuck a neighborhood or a small community here in this one spot, then you could say, yeah, and I'm right outside of Wilmington and you could totally do that.
Yeah. So there's an idea too, guys, that you could come up with, that's not so much a small town, but it is a small area.
Yeah.
And it would still give you that same control and everything else. It would
But
so
you are
I
still marrying yourself to the things that town, that real life town has. So if there's something that you're like, oh, I wanted to have this dramatic thing happen, and it's like, oh, but it doesn't make sense if my borough or my neighborhood or my suburb is a part of this place because it's right there.
Mhm.
So you just have to think about things like that a little bit. But that's why Google Maps and Google Earth are my friends.
I think it would be almost like, so I used to live in Michigan, and I lived in Grand Rapids, but my address was in Granville, which apparently is like a suburb of Grand Rapids. But when I first moved there, I didn't get that. And so I would, and especially because the way their highway system is set up, it really felt like I was like going from one little small town to another small town. And
It's
so
like,
I
no,
would tell the people at work, I'm just like, I'm going to Grand Rapids today. They're like, no, you're going
you're
downtown.
in.
And
Yeah,
I'm like,
like this
no, I'm going
is
to Grand
Grand
Rapids. And
Rapids.
they're like, yeah, downtown. You're in Grand Rapids, Timmy.
Like we are here.
And I'm like, no, we're in Grand. Like I would argue them down. And so eventually I kind of got it, but I still would say it just because I knew it bothered them. They're like, I'm going to Grand Rapids today. They're like, no, downtown. And that felt really great when my father visited, and he was like, I'm thinking of riding my bike into Grand Rapids. And I was like, yes. It's not just me.
Had him doing it too. Mm-hmm.
I want to point out, because I think this, I know I've not pinned up a lot of comments, but this is hilarious. Rachel said, your idea for the Starbucks, she was blacklisted from Starbucks, then started up her own small coffee shop, called it Grounded for Life, then became CEO, waited for I think that's supposed to be town goes in, like the coffee shop becomes bigger than Starbucks.
I love that. I love
And then
that.
she's like, the manager got her blacklisted is now working at Grounded for Life as a barista. Perfect Hallmark movie.
That would be so fun.
I was just like, this is awesome. She's come up with the way around the Starbucks. Like, I love it. So yeah, and she even came up with the name Grounded for Life.
Grounded for life. I love that.
Well, okay, so
You got
we've
to do it
talked
now,
about
Rachel.
it's well, because I'm going to go into this, because we really talked about kind of how you name the towns, and I think we've kind of covered that. Again, if you guys have any questions about naming towns or anything like that, drop them in the comments. We're going to touch on all the questions like towards the end of the episode. But how do you have a specific way you like to name the things in your town? And the reason I ask that is because of Rachel coming up with the Grounded for Life, but
Yes, I like doing
I
things like that. Not
had
gonna lie.
I had Des cracking up when we were kind of naming some places in our small town, because like I like a good pun. If you could give me a pun in a name, I'm very, very happy. Like all booked up for the bookstore.
Yep.
Or, like my tea shop in my town is like, what is it? Beanie Town coffee.
Yeah.
So
Yep. I like
do
things
you have
like
like
that.
a way that you name like your places in your town?
Yes, I do something very, very similar. I like it to, if it's not named after the person who's running it or who started it, then I do like those puns. I'm trying to think what story this one is in. If it's Codename Penny, I can't say it. I think it's Codename Penny. Okay, so I can't
Uh,
say, but I have one that's super fun and cute, and I love it. But it's of that same vein. And so like my burger joint that I have in Ethereal Falls, the theater I named after the family that started the theater, and the so my town's a little magical. So I have a nymph, and she runs the bakery, and it's called the Sweet Spot. So just things like that. What are some of the? I have my list. See, that's why I knew it was going to be good, because I never remember all the names of the things. I was like, let me pull up my thing.
While
So
you're
my
doing that, hold on.
town,
We've got Wicked Good for a candle shop, which I think
yes,
is adorable. And
that's
then Regina
adorable.
also has the Muffin Man for a
Yes,
bakery,
yes.
which is awesome.
That's in a story. That's in a story.
The Muffin
Regina,
Man?
did you read the story that I read? Yes, I recently read one
I
where,
love it.
yep, it's a guy who runs the bakery, and I believe it was called the Muffin Man. And the girl was like, "Oh, that's why, because it's a guy." So all of my names, if it's a restaurant that was started by one of the mythics, they're humans that have a little bit of magic in them, then it has that something magical about the name. So the burger joint is called the Beswick Burger, and the pizza joint's called the Presto Pizza. So I
Ooh.
like things like that a lot.
I like that. Now, here's maybe where I do go into a little bit of the history because in my town we have Lady J's Horse Saloon as opposed to Horse
Mhm.
Ranch because the idea is that her family was one of the founding families in the town and it used to actually be a saloon where like, the older women of the night, if you will,
Mhm.
danced and they did the dance hall thing and maybe had some little tryst and stuff. um, and so when I came up with the idea of it, it's like in my head it very much still looks like a 19, actually I guess that would be 18, 1700s type of saloon, with like the door that swings open and they
Yeah.
sell a lot of like kitschy type of things and they have like the old rustic tables and like in the waiting area and like the bar is actually where the counter is where you check out. And so like in my head it's very much kind of like that still saloon vibe of
Mhm.
how it kind of works. Rachel is killing it with the
Rachel,
name.
you're feeling it. I love it. I'm gonna
Mix it
save
up
some of these.
for
I'm gonna hit
bakery,
you up and see if I can use a couple of these, because I love
bend over yoga studio.
oh.
That's better than like a downward dog type of yoga studio. So that's great. Heavenly Roses is a
Oh, maybe
flower shop.
I might have been reading Regina's story. Okay. I'm like, I read a story with the muffin man. I think it's Regina's, which would make sense.
So yes, I absolutely adore it. What about, well, let's just talk all things naming while we're here. What about naming families in your town? Because you did mention like if you do like to start with kind of the founding families, the history of, do you have a certain way of naming your families in your town when you're doing that?
Depends on which story I'm writing for. If I'm writing for Codename Penny, not as much, because I'm really just pulling names and then creating families and just making sure that the names make sense for the people that they are. But it really just depends. I'm more I'm more particular about the names when it comes to the ethereal story series, because
Mm.
everybody's name kind of has a little bit of a meaning. It's driven a little bit from something. So I'm more intentional there. It's not that I'm not intentional with the other stories. It's just that sometimes with the other story, I just need name. And I'm like, well, this is your family's name from now on. But with all of my stories, because I do a historical aspect to each of my stories, whoever the founding fathers are, their names are still around in the present day stories. So if their names meant something back then, like one of my stories, the town's founded in the late 1800s. So and there's a lot to it. It's code Benny, darn it. But there's a lot to it. So in the beginning, their names mean something, and thus so do the town's name.
Yeah.
But then moving forward, the people that we're talking to and following today, that's just their name. That because it's their name from, so it doesn't really, their last name anyway doesn't really have a meaning. Their first name, if they can say I'm named after the founder from back in 1872, that's who, he's my great 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 grandfather, so that's who I'm named. So if that's the case, then yeah. But with the ethereal series, I'm a little bit more intentional. I'm a little bit more intentional on the family name as well.
Very interesting. So
Those
in the
name banks,
Petri
man.
series, I have there's 4 founding families and a 5th one apparently that I don't remember throwing in there until I was reading some notes, and I was like, "Who are you people? Do I even have you in the town?" But 2 of the big ones, and I don't even know if I really thought about this when I did it, are the hills and the woods. Which is hilarious because it's set in a mountain town. Like, I don't know if I thought about that as far as hill and woods with, mountains and everything. Am I frozen? Oh, okay, good. It looked like I was frozen there for a second. But they have a rivalry of who started the town first. And so, like if you talk to the Hills, they're like, those Jolene Wood, she just thinks she knows everything. She just because she thinks her family was like the first ones here. And if you talk to the Woods, then she's like, I'm so sick of Holden Woods or Holden Hills. And his idea that his family was the biggest name in town. And so it's kind of this little rivalry. And then the other 2 families are just like, we were here. We're good. But yeah, but I think with the town, and it's fun that you said more intentional, because we were a little bit more intentional with the Des Lorre town, because we have old money in that town.
Mm-hmm.
So, we were very much looking up Rockefeller kind of names, or names that sounded a little wealthy. Sounded like they could be old.
Yes.
And same with, we have one woman, Grandma Betty. We always talk about Grandma Betty, who her history is that she was kind of like an American princess bride. The Americans got some money and they sent over to England and got themselves a bride who had some type of title. And so when we were looking up her maiden name, then we really had to come with a really good old English type of name, because we were like, okay. And her name's Grandma Betty, but it's actually Beatrice.
I like that. Yes.
Because we were like, we gotta come up with some really good names there.
Yeah. If I have characters that are coming from royalty or coming from money, I kind of want them to have one of those "I come from money" names.
Oh yeah. I thought of something when you were saying the names, and it was back to naming the town, and I remember now. What do you think of naming towns after the people that you have in there? Like if you have like I said, okay, so my family are like the Hills, right? So
Mhm.
would you name a town like something Hill or Hill Valley or something to that effect, like naming it after the founding family?
Yeah, I would do that.
She's laughing, y'all, because she probably already did it. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I would do that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Okay. So that's also a way that you can name a town is after like one of the family members or one of the founding families of that town.
Yes.
Um I'm over cry. Seriously, Rachel. Oh, it moved up for me like
Rachel, what
for the
kind of
Omni
town is this?
batter
What
up
town?
for the
I need this
culinary
town.
school.
Make this town
Esther's
because I
in it
want to
now.
I
Butter
want to
my
make it a
cupcake.
destination place in my story. So can
I
you
do
just
like
make
the
this
butter my
town?
cup bakery though. That's pretty cool. Get nailed for the
Yeah.
for the salon. And
I
she
need
was,
you to make this town so that my people
honey, I'll
can
be
go to
home
this
later.
town.
I'm going to
And
get
if
nailed this afternoon.
I need my people to take a road trip to this town to
You
get their nails
know,
done.
I like Rachel. I feel like you need to write this story with all of these towns. Just makes sense for the perfume place. Like you really need to do that. I would definitely visit. I too would tell people like, honey, I'm going to get nailed.
What's the name of the town, Rachel? We need to have the name of the town so we know where all the good places are. Where are people going? Where are we sending them?
I broke Tiffany up. Oh. Okay, so let's think. Is there anything else that we can cover as far as naming towns? Do you ever take weather into consideration, like when you're naming a town? Um,
Sometimes. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It depends on what's going on. Like if it's I would think because I took something else into consideration, just the general area, the general ambiance of an area. And I've named a town based on the ambiance. Like it's just always kind of cloudy. The trees don't get super green. They look a little creaky. So I've named a town that way from the obvious. So weather, yeah, I guess that would include that. But yeah, it would for me it would have to have made sense though when the town was founded. Unless the town has just gotten a new name, then it's a newer town. Like maybe it was just a plot of land and now someone has just moved in and they're like, well, I guess I need to call it a town. We're going to incorporate it and that whole thing. But if it's a town that already exists, I do can take into consideration, was it like this, was the weather like this, was the ambiance like this when it would have been founded.
Okay. Because
Because
I
if
do.
if it was always sunny and then something shifted and now it rains all the time, it wouldn't have made sense for it to be called Druryville. And they're like, well, why was it called Druryville back when it was sunshine and rainbows all the time?
Right.
you know?
Because that's what I was thinking of. Because I was like, sometimes like if I look at like where I'm setting it, and if it is someplace that's always sunny, like I'm not, like you said, gonna call it Druryville or
Mhm.
something like that. Or if it's someplace like
Might be Sunnyville or Sunnyvale.
right. Or like when I did the town called Christmas, like I knew it had to be a snowy town because hello, Christmas.
Yes. So,
But yeah, like sometimes I do look at a few little things like that. And so I thought
so
that
not
that
a
was
town called Christmas located in Miami, a small town outside of Miami
I'm
where
not
it's
gonna
hot.
lie to you. I do have an idea for North Pole that is not set in the
That
North
would be
Pole.
like ironic. It would be ironic.
And I'm not saying where yet because I'm not sure if I'm gonna do it or how I'm gonna play it off. But I got some ideas. And it would definitely be a Christmas series, but it's not your traditional Christmas series.
North Pole, Arizona, where the temperature never gets below 80 degrees.
It's not quite North Pole with white sand, but it is a little bit of a. It's closer to a bad Santa than necessarily like a traditional everybody Santa.
Okay.
Okay, Rachel, we really need you to make this town because Rachel said town is called here, and people just greet tourists by saying, "Oh, good,
Oh, I'm
you're
going
here."
here. Oh,
And then she's like, the council is called TEAM, Town's Exemplary and Admirable Member.
oh no.
Like, Rachel, you are killing me right now. Uh,
I'm going here to get nailed. That's something.
that is
That would
priceless right there.
that would
All right, I'm going to go through some of the chat because we are almost done here. Miss Claus is in her 2 red and white Bailey suits looking like a snack. Esther also said Little Birdie Town because everyone knows everything because a little birdie told them, which
that's
is
cute.
adorable.
That is cute. I love that.
Regina also said my vampire series is based in a town called Grimwell, which
Ooh,
I think that is a great name
that is
for.
a great name.
Yeah, and even not even just vampire, like a witches
Yep.
series or something like that. That would be a wonderful name. Um, Hi Laura, you're awesome too.
Yes.
Michelle came in and said, "Hi everyone, my town name was named after my founding family's cat Calico, and the apple grove that it was famous for, thus Calico Grove," which
I
I
love
think
that.
that is awesome as
Yep.
well.
Perfect way to put
So
it.
I never think about naming for pets or pet names, but that's a good one as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also had your characters can always visit real states and they can always come back home to the town you have created, which is very, very true. So that's always something that you can kind of take into consideration. And then Regina also said, when I named my fictional Colorado town, I wanted to use eagle in it. That's very Colorado, which is extremely true. Lots of towns with eagle in the name, LOL, but I had to pick one that did not exist, equal Eagle's Toe, which
Nice.
also
That's a
as
great
someone,
name.
yeah, and as someone who lived in Colorado, that is something that they would do because they have a
Yep.
tendency, like they have some weird mismatches of names where you're
Yep.
like,
I would not know that that was not a real town. I'd be like, oh, Eagles. So
yeah, I
okay.
easily would too.
Sounds right.
This is here's rival town is there, and locals tell the tourists, whatever you do, don't go there.
Oh, don't go
Rachel
there to
is
get
reminding
nailed.
me of, did you guys ever, when I was in college, okay, so you know how like you're in college and everybody and their mother is trying to give you a credit card, even though that's probably the worst time for any student to ever have a credit card.
Mhm.
But they would just have these random applications on like the tables in the student union and all the different stuff. And so we would fill them out and we would fill out, like name, who wants to know, last name, why would I tell you?
Yes.
Like street, where I live,
Where I,
town, where I grew up,
where do you live?
city.
At my
Why are
house.
you so nosy?
Yep.
Phone number, 7 digits. Like, and so we would just fill out these random things on the town. And that is what I'm seriously, Rachel, you were giving me all the vibes of that. Like when
I love
I'm
that.
having flashbacks of childhood. I don't know. Last time I went to Colorado, I drove through Gunshot and Cannon. I'm still confused about the dinosaurs. I mean, and like this is very true. Like Colorado, love it, but they do have some random names that you're like, how did we get here? So, and then in the middle of it, there's a Springs.
Yeah.
You have like some random crazy names, and then you're like, oh, Springs. Random crazy name. Oh, Springs. So, yeah.
Yep. So there's
Yeah.
Nunya.
Laura's got Nanya and business. Exactly.
But in all seriousness, those combination names are really, really great. If you want to, if someone, a founder had a child named Lily, and there maybe there's a big rock in the town, and the town's name is Lily's Rock. You can always
Oh
do those
yeah.
combination names. That's a good
Hmm.
way. Like like I can't just come up with a name, but I have these family members, and I know that there's these things here. Um, Maybe there's a lot of oak trees. Maybe it's and maybe the founder had a son or a father named Brandon, and it's Brandon Oaks or something like that. So
Mm.
you can combine these things. I'm just popping these off. Not doing as good a job as Rachel is. Rachel's killing it over there. But so you get an idea of what I mean. You can take someone's name and an aspect of the area and make that into a name.
Yeah. Also, Laura just popped in. My mother made us use a Harry Potter cookbook with an author named Lee. Is that
Lethal.
Thal?
Lethal.
Lethal? Yeah. And I was thinking, you can use like middle names as well, or like kind of puns in that way, to name a town, like um Big Mountain if there is no mountains, or like there's just little hills.
It could be very ironic. People are gonna be like,
You
"Where's the big
know?
mountain?" It's just over there.
So yeah, so you can always do like crazy kind of puns or something like that. Uh Rachel,
Like,
I don't know.
I don't know.
Where are
Where are
you?
you
I
going?
don't
Where are you
know.
going? I don't know. Where are you at? I don't know.
I talk like I say it all the time. There is an actual town called Normal, in Illinois, and I really, one of these days I'm gonna get off the highway and I'm gonna drive there just to see if they have a sign when you're like crossing the state or the city line, and it says you're leaving Normal.
Yep.
Because I'm like, or like entering Normal, just something normal, because I'm just like, I feel like it needs to be there. But I do like
I
those
feel
type
like
of names too. Like if you can come up with something that's kind of, um, like maybe if we're writing steamy, maybe your town is named Passions.
mhm. Yes.
Or
Yep.
like if you're writing sweet, maybe your town is named something like Lovely or something.
Yeah. Sugar
Like,
Valley.
yeah, something that
Just
kind
Sugar
of picks
Valley.
up on that. I always love
And
those as
everybody
well.
says sugar.
Oh,
Because in North Carolina, the towns are never pronounced how they are. So we know when you're not from North Carolina. If you say Kenansville, we're like, oh, you're not from here. It's Kenansville because we just blend the whole first part together and Ville. So if your town is Sugar Valley, it's Sugar Valley, just sugar.
I love
And
it.
they always know when someone's coming from out of town because they say sugar properly, and they're just
Mhm.
like, bless your heart. Where are you from, baby?
Oh, you could even, hey, you know what? You could come up with the Bless Your Heart, Tennessee. Or maybe it's Hartville, Tennessee, and they say bless your heart all the time.
Mhm.
So yes. One of my founding family's names is Hillstone. Their 19th century home is now a museum on a hill. Very nice.
Ooh,
The main founding
Hillstone
family
Museum. I like it when it sounds good too. Hillstone Museum.
was is named Feynman. Their ranch is the Rocking Eagle, and they donate the land for the town, hence Eagle Toe. You know
And I bet
what's
they
really
got some
funny,
fine
Virginia?
men in Feynman.
You know what's really funny is, and I don't know if you knew this, there is a place in Colorado called Garden of the Gods. It's one of my favorite places when I
Ooh.
go there, because it's just like, honestly, it's really peaceful. But a lot of the land is actually donated by a guy who used to live there, and he donated the land to the town for that specific location. And his only stipulation from the family is that it always remains a national, like, open free park for people. Like, they cannot charge. That's the stipulation of the donation. So yeah, so you almost pulled that out of real history.
I can't get over with that there will be she'll have people and they just you got to make some people that do this. You want to go there to find a man and find man. They got some
I
fine
like
men.
that.
They got some fine men and fine man. Yeah.
That's good.
Mhm.
And the smallest hill is called Big Peak. The actual mountain is Molehill. I'm loving this. I live in West Virginia. We have towns called Hurricane and Tornado and Jumping Branch. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Uranus chocolate is out of this world. The most fun you'll have is in Uranus.
No.
Rachel.
One came in my head with taste, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not even gonna say it.
You
You're all
know,
writers. Use your imagination.
when I lived in Idaho, I would drive down a street called Frozen Dog.
This is real.
Call it Whiskey Town, known for its wines. But again, if you have a distillery, like if your town's set around a distillery, using something like a wine or a whiskey or bourbon or something like that in the town name, you definitely could do it. So yeah. Oh yay! I love Garden of the Gods too. It's such a great place. Um, a town called Prison. And Laura's like, the school uniforms is orange jumpsuit.
No. You guys are so fun.
Oh, I did photograph. It's somewhere. I don't know where, but you can get it's a Halloween costume. And on the back, it just says Got Busted Penitentiary. So like it is possible you could come up with a town logo with the jumpsuit for the kids for the school uniform. That would be perfect for that. So, guys, do you have any questions for us before we wrap it up? You're free to use the names, but I demand my name in the dedication. If we use any of these names, we will definitely dedicate it to you. Although I'm not gonna lie, I kind of want to use the Get Nailed.
Yeah, I'm stuck on that one. Going somewhere.
I really kind of want to use the Get Nailed. I'm not positive it flows for either of my small towns that I have right now. But we might have a city coming for Des Lorre that we could work with that.
We'll remember you, Rachel.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. On the real quick on the note that Tiffany just said, you do want to make sure that the names are fitting for your stories. If you've got a very sweet romance that's the most that they do is hold hands, you might not want to have a Get Nailed. There.
If
your
you
readers might be like,
West Virginia. Get Nailed works perfect.
Yeah. Yes.
Regina's so funny. Question: how dare you be so interesting that I didn't get any work done? You're so sweet. Where should you start when creating a universe or large city? This is a good question.
I think is that a bigger question? I can tell you, if you start, there's not a wrong way to do this. You can start with people. Well, I know a lot of people, their stories are character driven and they start with characters and then they build the world around the characters. I'm the reverse. I start with my world. I kind of think of what events I kind of want to happen and what does this place look like? And I go from there and then put the people in the town. Where should you start so where do you feel comfortable starting? Like, what's in your mind right now? And start there.
Yeah.
Like, do you just have a bunch of people, but you have no idea for a town? Do you have kind of a place in mind? Because literally, if you have like just a neighborhood, start with that neighborhood. If you're like, all I've got is like feuding neighbors across the street, and their teenage kids fall for each other, or maybe they're two divorcees and they fall for each other, and that's what I've got. So they live in this neighborhood. You can start there and then build out from there, and think
Mhm.
about how big do you want this town to be. Um, like and then you're just gonna grow it from there. I've seen a lot of the stuff that, like your map and stuff, Renee. I think you're really on the right track. um
Yeah.
but yeah, it's really individual about where you actually start, because I know people just start in very different places. I start with the world, and then I put the people in it, and then the world usually just gets bigger. Even from where I start, it gets bigger and bigger, and then it's a whole globe. And like what you're going to see soon is that there's even stuff that happens out in space, but that's a whole futuristic sci-fi Nia thing.
I think I'm the opposite with Nia, which we've talked about, is that
Mhm.
I generally start with character first and then
Yep.
build my world around them. But I think when you're doing a large city, my first instinct is to look at large cities. Because in a small town, it's a little bit easier to keep everything kind of compact. And, like, just start off with, oh, we have the main street. And so we just put everything there and then branch from that, like, well, there needs to be a sheriff or something like that. There needs to be this, there needs to be that. Um, when you are doing a larger city, I would look at a larger city because I'm from St. Louis, which is considered a large city. It's nowhere near the size of Chicago or New York or Los
Mhm.
Angeles. You know what I mean? So like you want to look at what size large city you're looking at, and then um kind of base it there, because and I almost think it would be easier to start small in a large city, like
Yeah,
pick a
I agree. I
borough.
would be in the little
Yeah,
area
pick an
first,
area,
and
pick a
then branch out.
subdivision, pick something, and then bring things in as you need to.
Yeah,
Like your people, focus your story like on the school, or focus your story like on the neighborhood or something like that. And then be like, oh, well, they have to go downtown for this. Okay, now what's downtown?
yeah,
Oh, they have to, their family lives over in this area, which is the affluent area. Okay, well, then what's over there? And kind
yeah,
of branch it that way, than necessarily be like, okay, I need like a huge downtown and like a huge this and a huge that and theater section and
yeah.
all this
A
stuff.
lot of a
Start
lot
there.
of it's because a lot of that stuff is implied. And
Mhm.
that's what I mean when I say, when you're building something, even in a small town, there's things that are implied. It's implied that there's going to be a post office, even if you never mention a post office. You're not going to
Mhm.
mention everything in your story. The same thing with a large city. There are things that just are in a large city that in our mind, even as a reader, we're expecting that the city is going to have this thing, unless you tell us that it doesn't have this thing.
Right.
And then we're like, oh, well, that's interesting. It's because it's unexpected. It's more unexpected when you tell us that that a place that we're expecting to have something doesn't have it. That's a little bit more like, oh, okay, and that'll stick to our mind. Other than that, we are expecting the city to have things that cities have in it. So you don't need to detail every bit of the
Mhm.
infrastructure. And that way, what I would do, like if you're mapping things out, I would say this, just like I do with the small town. This is the neighborhood now where I live at in the city, and I have to go up North Street, on up north on 42nd to get to my post office. I go this way to get to my grocery store, and those are the things that you specifically name. Everything else is implied that it's there. We just don't know where it's at because your people have never gone there. But we don't think, just because you didn't say that there's a real estate agency, there's no real estate agencies in the
Right.
city. Well, obviously, there more than likely there is one. There's more than likely going to be a gas station, even if you never say that
A
you've gone to the gas
school, a
station. A school, high
hospital.
schools, elementary
Yeah.
school. Maybe you mention a
Police
high school, but you never
station.
mention middle school or elementary school. We're gonna, it's gonna be implied that there's at least one
Mhm.
elementary school and middle school in your city. unless you say that there's not.
And if
So
you have a city, then we're also going to be like, why is there not a middle school?
yeah, and that would be like, why? Did they all get shut down? Then my brain is like thinking, what happened to the schools?
Right. We want
Did the
details.
government come in and shut them down? What happened? That's a bigger story. What's going on? Yeah.
Regina does make a good point in mind of creating a city. Keep in mind that Gotham City is based in New York. So, like, if you think about that, like, you don't think Gotham City like New York, but it is based there. It's just a city.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that idea of taking one area smaller, but setting it in a bigger location.
Yeah, because I think that Gotham City takes like that 1970s, 1980s New York, and they create Gotham City. But that's so in your mind, if you can remember what New York was like in that time, that's what you're thinking Gotham City is.
Also, Esther said, also population size. If 5K population feels a lot, then 25K, 150K, 500K population would be hard to wrap your head around, which is very true. So yeah, definitely center it and figure out what it is that you're trying to get at. And then Rachel, I'm going downtown. Are you going there? Heck no, I'm going here. And I think Laura's giving you some ideas of what you can have there. A nightclub, Esther threw in a bar. Rachel is like, if you like my humor, you should definitely read my books, which is very
That's
true.
right.
And then you guys are killing me. The textbooks were too historical, historically accurate.
Stop.
Oh, in here, there's a bar called Raise the Bar.
Yeah, that's funny. But Renee, you do a walkthrough. If you can do a walkthrough of some cities, because cities are going to have things if you're not from a city. Cities do have things that you don't think about that you will need to use every day. Like the way that they put their trash out is different. Some cities, they put their trash out on the front, just on the front curtain. New York does this, and I'm just like, oh, the trash bags are on the road. It tripped me out. Where we keep our bins, we might roll the bin down to the end of the driveway, and then we roll the bin back up. And then there's some cities where, depending on the area, you might say that your city has dumpsters, so there may be dumpsters on every block. That also, a lot of cities have alleyways, so there you do want to kind of like do a Google Earth to get a map view of what it's like, and then try to do a walkthrough on your own using Google Earth, and also a walk with me. There's a lot of I've seen a lot of them on YouTube. I've seen some cities I'm like, oh Lord of mercy, but they'll like walk through, and they've got their GoPro on, and they're just walking through down some city streets, so you can see what it actually looks like. And they'll say this was February 2023. And that's what it looks like walking down the street on the middle of the day in February 2023.
Yeah. And keep in mind too, again, in that idea of Gotham City is in New York, you can create a small town or a small city inside of your bigger city and have that control of that. And then almost like my idea of I'm going to Grand Rapids today, even though all of it was Grand Rapids, you could have that idea of I'm going downtown, which then could be New York, or I'm going into the city, which then could be like whatever your city, the proper city is for that. So you could always kind of work around that in that type of way, in that type of situation. This is a good one from Esther. Places every small town needs to have. I would start with your basics, like maybe a clinic, maybe a police station, maybe a fire station or a fire brigade, depending on how small your town is. Uh, maybe a school, even if it's just one, a grocery store. Think of the things that it would be hard to get through life without going to or
Yeah.
having a bank. You
Yeah.
have to have some place to put your money,
Yeah.
electricity.
The things I think about is that the things that a town has to have. So there's things that a town has to have that maybe you don't necessarily need to write about. So you don't have to worry about some of the infrastructure things that every town's going to have, the water plant or whatever, which might be a county. Here, the smaller towns a lot of times will draw their water from the county. There's those things you don't have to write about, but you're always going to have some place to eat. You're going to have a gas
Mhm.
station. So when we start with where are the locals eating at, is there just one diner? Is this a one road town with one diner? If this is a one road town with one diner, then that's the eating place. I'm sorry. You need use the one that's in the hallway or downstairs, please. It's time for Loki to eat. I'm so sorry. Um, so how does your population, is it big enough for that there's 3 restaurants? So maybe you have a diner, you have a smaller cafe, and maybe you have the nice place where people go to eat when they get dolled up. So you're gonna have a place to eat. You're gonna have, can I say, at least down here, it could be a one road town. It's got an ABC liquor store, and it's got a gas station. And then you go from there. It's got some type of a grocery store, whether it's a small supermarket or a bigger grocery store. And there's probably going to be some type of a bar somewhere for
Mhm.
some nighttime activities, even in a very, very small town. There, again, in North Carolina, when we drive through some of the back roads, it'll be a trailer that says nightclub, and we're just like, how? Okay, not going to stop in there. Uh, but it's somewhere where the people, there might be 10 people in that town, but it's somewhere where they want to go to hang out. So they stuck a sign and called it the nightclub. So there's
Tennessee. I feel
it,
that it was a house and it just said the club.
yeah, there's might be, depending on your, there might be a lodge. So there are things that you're not, that it's going to be hard to get away with not having, like a gas station, a food eatery of some sort. You don't have to say that there's an ABC liquor store. Trust me, I'm one of those people. If you don't say there's a liquor store, I'm assuming there's one there, unless you say that this town has no liquor store. Then I'm like, oh, as a person who's surrounded by small towns, that would be unique. I'd be like,
You're
okay,
in
this town doesn't.
Sweetville. There we go.
Yeah, you're in Springfield. No liquor store.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us are writing these romancy style short stories, we like to have a library or a bookshop. We like to have a cafe or a coffee shop or some type of diner where meet cutes can happen. There's
Mhm.
a park or something that like
Mhm.
that where people can. Usually, there are places that make great meet cutes. So you can think about it that way. But a lot of small towns, they'll have like a little municipal building, depending on the size, and they might have a fire department, but it might be the fire department and the police department and this
Mhm.
civic city center all in one building. If it's really, really small, it's all just in one building. So it depends on how big. But those are some things that I think that every small town needs to have as far as what you're writing, those little places where your people are going to be, and that also makes sense.
Yeah. And
Again, some
I
of
think
these are
those
going
are
to
good.
imply, if you never mention a gas station, I'm assuming that your small town has at least one gas station, unless you say we don't have a gas station, we got to go all the way to X or Yville, we got to go here or there to get gas. Here or there.
And I think if you start with the basics, like the things that Nia was saying, like a grocery store, someplace for people to eat, someplace for people to stay if they're visiting, like a
Mhm.
hotel or motel or Holiday Inn. But like if you start with one of those type of things, you will be surprised. Like I didn't know that I needed a tow truck driver until I got into a story and I needed a car towed.
Where that's
And
one
it was
of
like, oh, okay,
one of
well,
the
I need
first
a tow
things
truck
in my
driver.
story. Yep. Because I
But then I had
really
to
want to
think
use
about
it.
it in the sense of, which I really had so much fun playing with this tow truck driver. He's the only tow truck driver for the county. So therefore, and it also
Mhm.
became kind of a plot point because this person kept trying to get their car back. But it was like, well, he closes at this time because he's got to go home and watch his TV show and nobody else is there. And then it was like, then they went to go get the car and it's like, well, no, he got called over to this town. So he had to go tow somebody over there and nobody else is there. And so it kind of became a plot thing because it was like, it's a small town. You don't need a full-time tow truck driver. So like you could find different ways to make that work. But once you start doing stuff, I think you figure out what your town needs based on just what's happening. Like I think I was telling them backstage, I forgot that I needed a high school until I moved in like a sister who had a younger or a woman who had a younger sister who was thus in high school. Like I knew I
Mhm.
had high school students in my town. I've even named a couple, but it didn't occur to me to actually come up with a high school. Until I got to this point where, oh, we need to take her and register for high school. We need an actual high school name. So, yeah, so you have to, like, once your town starts to build and breathe and live, you will find that there are other things that you maybe didn't know your town needed until you got into it.
Yep.
And y'all down here in these comments, y'all are killing me. Laura said, this back to the city. The city can be huge, but the whole population doesn't need to be named individuals. Cities have living masses of people. Archetypes can be good shorthand for incidental people seen in passing, which is really good. We have Rachel with the electrical company called Power Up. Esther, the phone provider here, is called The Signal Is Here. Oh, then there's the bar called Low Bar after Zoder Low. Mr. Low. Like y'all are killing me. The electrician company is called Shockingly Good.
Oh,
Billionaires live in Eagle Toe, so they have a very high-end hospital called Feynman's Memorial.
you know.
Like I feel like all the doctors at Feynman's Memorial just need to be hot, hot, hot.
Yeah, I feel like everyone wants to be a nurse working at that hospital.
Most people in cities don't talk to strangers. You can make the houses on a cul-de-sac feel insular, where neighbors look out for one another, fetching mail when out of town and delivering holiday treats. I actually live on a cul-de-sac. My father knows the neighbors. So, yeah. Do with that what you will. Because I don't know. I think I know one. The
So
sewer trash
would you
company.
be the grumpy in this rom-com where you're the grumpy not wanting to meet everybody and
If you ask my father,
the new
probably.
neighbor keeps coming and knocking on your
I
door
wave, like
and
they
you're like,
wave at
why
me,
do they
I
keep
wave
coming over?
back. Uh, the sewer trash company is called What a Wave. But of course, there's always that one chatty person on the airplane who will talk to anyone to fill the lonely void in their life. Others may shy away from them, looking uncomfortable. That would be my father. You've obviously sat next to him. Uh, or a fast food place. A fast food place is always good. Again, have a diner called Diner Bell or Dinner Bell. Maybe a bed and breakfast. Bed and
Mhm.
breakfasts in small towns are huge,
We
so
love
that's
those.
always a good one to add in. We have a famous homeless dude in Toronto who really who always was shirtless with a Santa hat doing exercises on the poles and bars in the subway car. Okay, that beats. We used to have this woman, and I don't think she was homeless, but we would go to like different outdoor events and she was always there and she had on this pink tutu and she would just be dancing her whole life away. Like, I mean, she would, and not very good dancing, not always on the beat dancing, but I like her whole world. She was just like in her zone. I don't think she realized there were people around her, but rain, sleet, snow, sunny, snowy, whatever weather, she had this pink tutu on and she would just be out there getting her whole life. And so, yes, some kind of entertainment for the fam and the adults, ideally separately. Yes, that's always good. Having a electric character, eccentric character can make the place feel more realistic and lived in, not revolving around the main character. Very good. I'm going the club. Which club? It's called the club. I mean, it's a true
Yeah.
statement. Liquor
Very.
store simply called liquor. I mean, these are all good. Gardening and nature observer members exclusive club, gnomes. And the members knit and crochet instead of gardening because their knees can't take it anymore.
Oh, yeah.
It becomes a gossip hub. Okay, y'all are just going crazy over here. Um, they have the hottest gossip week. It's ahead of the hair salon gossip.
I believe it.
They've been talking about starting a gazette. Here's the gazette. I feel like doctors and see, that's what I'm saying. They would have to be some of the like hottest doctors,
They
like the ones in
are.
Grey's Anatomy. And one of their grandchild is the one who fiercely types everything they hear and runs the Gazette. Yep, absolutely. Um, Bed and breakfast called sleeping on the sunny side of.
Aw.
You guys are
Very
awesome.
nice.
All right, guys, we are going to call it a day. We hope that we have helped. If you have any small town questions that you would like us to cover, small town topics that you would like us to cover, we're going to be back. We have not decided if this is an every other week or a once a month conversation, but we do know that we will be back the first Saturday of March. So look for us there. If we pop up before that, then yay! If we don't, then we will see you there. You guys, Rachel, radio station hosted by Radio.
I love that. You guys, we are also part of a Discord. If you message us, if you'd like to be a part of that, we can answer your questions there. I have a place called Creator Sharing Corner, where if you want to share some of the things that you're working on, and we can help you nitpick and work things out with your world building. And yeah, so it's the creators on Main. There's a handful of us over there that, and we just love to help you out, and we just love to talk. We talk about all kinds of stuff over there. But
And I had the. We don't really keep it the normal link all the time.
yeah, we do change it.
Yeah, so I can maybe try to put it at the bottom or in the boxy box, but I can't guarantee that it will always be the same link.
Yeah, we usually set it. It'll be good for 12 hours. Let me try and grab one really quick.
Okay, cool. Because I was gonna possibly do the same because I was like, I don't know. But again, if you have any questions, you can always send me a DM on Instagram or on Facebook. I am on both under TL Russ Lifestyle on Instagram and Tiffany Russell on Esther found it.
Thank you, Esther.
She did on Facebook. Yes, I was like, where am I at? On Facebook, yes. So you can always message me on either place. And we have enjoyed this so much. I think next week we are going to, or not next week, next time we are going to be back and we are going to be talking about, hold on, I made a list. I made a list because I list things.
While she's looking for the list.
Wow, when you go to click something else and you realize that you did not cancel something that you were supposed to cancel beforehand and you've just been charged.
I will say I have a newsletter which I just started, but speaking of Gazette, my newsletter does have a Gazette in it, and you can see some of the places in my small town, and I will be featuring some of the places in my small town. So if you want an idea of what that might be like, you can sign up for my newsletter on my website at vixenfiction.com. And you'll get to see some of my small towns and some of the things that we do. Tiff and I like to do extra creative things. You'll get to see some of the things that we do for our small towns.
Yep. I do have a newsletter, so by all means, you can sign up for that as well. And we both have small town books. So if you want to see our small towns in action, you can check those in the boxy box after I get all the links together. So stay with me.
Mine's not out yet. Mine's coming, so stay tuned. Stay tuned. If you sign up for the newsletter, you'll know you'll get all of the things, all the surprise things that are coming to you. That are free.
We also we will be back, and next time we will be talking about the history of your town, how to figure out the history of your town. So get ready. That one's gonna be good. Oh my gosh, congratulations, Regina.
Hey, that's amazing.
So awesome. That's a great note to go out on, guys. So we will see you guys next time.
And that's such a good series too. So yay, it deserves it.
All right. Bye, everyone.